So I might have to use like my Sonon voice.
That's what the mic's here for.
Morning, guys. How are you doing?
Good morning.
Thank you so much for coming to our panel today. There's quite a lot of you here. A little bit nervous. So, what do you guys want to talk about?
Obviously, Final Fantasy VII.
Should we get started?
Yeah.
All right, let's talk. So,
Yes.
ask away.
Oh, first of all, let's introduce ourselves for people who might not know. My name is Suzie Yeung. I am the voice actress of Yuffie Kisaragi and Final Fantasy VII Remake.
My name is Aleks. I am the voice of Sonon in Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade.
Intermission is the DLC. Intermission
is the complete.
Yeah, it's called intermission.
So, Suzie, what was your first experience with the Final Fantasy franchise itself?
First experience to that. Well, my first ever Final Fantasy game was Final Fantasy X. Raise of hands. Love Final Fantasy X. Yeah.
So one with the dude with like the half robe and his nipples were out, right?
Yeah, he has an interesting wardrobe.
Was his nipple out or was he covered?
He's like half covered.
Okay, the dude with
Because
the
he's
glasses.
like, he swims.
That's true.
Yeah. But yeah, so that was how I played Final Fantasy. How I knew Final Fantasy VII was through like Kingdom Hearts and Advent Children and other like sort of cameo sort of introductions. So I didn't play the original game, but I knew of the original game.
Fake fan.
I saw Yuffie for the first time, and she just came in so cool. I was like, oh my god, who's that? She's so awesome. She's so cool.
Who's your favorite Final Fantasy girl, though, out of everybody?
Don't ask me that question.
I'll let you simmer. My first introduction to the series was actually when I was way young, like 6 or 7. When I was younger, I used to live in Asia, and we didn't really have games readily available to us back then. So I had a lot of imports, like I had an uncle who worked in computers, and he could like import games, ROM hacks, stuff like that. So he would always bring us these ROM hacks just full of games like Pokemon, the original Final Fantasy games, and everything. And I remember the first time I saw Final Fantasy VII, as with most games that I played at the time, it was not in English, and it was not in a language I could understand. So I was playing it in Japanese, no idea what was going on. If you thought you were confused, that was one of the games I got. That. Anybody remember that game that comes with PS2 with like the weird? It was like one of those like you shoot like the balls and the colors connect, and then the cover was like a baby with a bunch of shit in its mouth. Not actual shit, but what was it? I think so. The cover was a puzzle game. It was an odd choice for the cover to have a puzzle game just be a baby on the cover.
I think that's a dragon or a baby dragon.
It might be something else, but yeah, that was that. I had that game and Final Fantasy, and obviously I was gonna play the baby game. No, Final Fantasy X. I had a great time with it. I still didn't understand what's going on, but I like the main character, and I like his, search for his father figure and all that stuff and everything else going on with it. The character designs were really cool, and I think that's what drew me to it. But it was too hard for me. I couldn't finish it. I had like 2 brain cells, and I had to use that to stay alive. And obviously, I could never get past the final levels of the game. But I really enjoyed it. And then the latest iteration I played was 15, that our friend Ray Chase is in. He gives me a lot of crap about not finishing that one.
I feel like you didn't finish any. You didn't even finish Intergrade.
I didn't finish Intergrade. I watched Charlotte.
Shame him.
She was like, we did because we both streamed the game when it came out, and she had a great time. She had a great time sharing the first chapter, And we streamed on the same night, and she was like, everybody, I'm finishing up my stream, please go raid Alex's stream. She sends 150 people to come watch me, and I was still trying to set up for like an hour and a
I was
half.
like, Suzie, this is like not a good time for you.
I couldn't figure out how to set up like any of the streaming interface, so the whole time I was like, guys, can you hear the game? No? Can you hear me?
It was like half an hour.
You can't hear me now? Can you hear the game now? And then when I finally got the game working, I died to the first enemy. And people just kept watching me frustratedly just...
This is why he's the subordinate.
This is why I watch you play the rest of the game.
Yeah.
But in reality, I only got through like 1 hour of Final Fantasy 15. It was a fun game. I like the fishing aspect of it, but I just had technical issues. But that was basically, well, I did finish Remake 7 because that was a really, really cool callback and everything. But obviously, because I didn't finish the original 7, I was also like, oh, this isn't a remake. I'm even more confused now. But I did my research. So that is kind of my history into the franchise. Now, did you, when was your first exposure to 7 Remake itself?
Well, my roommates were going crazy over it. They were like, oh my god, this game is so cool. This is so cool. So we gotta buy it. And like, it was literally the pandemic. So we had nothing to do but stay inside and I guess play video games, play Animal Crossing, you know. So they had bought the game and they were playing it. I was just watching them play and I was like, wow, this is really amazing. Like, look at those graphics. Like, all these characters that I knew from Kingdom Hearts and like all those other iterations of Final Fantasy VII. I was like, this looks so cool. So like in the future, you know, kind of thing. And the story, and the story was really good, and the characters, it made me cry a lot of times just watching my friend play.
You cried?
Yeah, of course I cried. Did you not?
I'm hard to cry.
I mean, the scene in the bar.
Yeah, I know.
No spoilers. Has everybody played the game?
But I just like looking at Cloud. Cloud, Tifa, and Aerith.
You know, they did a really
Barrett
good
too,
job.
oh my god, his beautiful eyes when he takes off his sunglasses. His
What about
eyes are
Red
so
13?
beautiful.
Kind eyes. That's why he keeps the sunglasses on, to make him seem intimidating, but when he takes them off, they really do, you know, you just want to hold them.
Did you, did you finish the game, or did you watch them finish the
Yeah,
game,
I
but you
did.
didn't actually play the game?
I didn't actually play it
How are you so good at remake
until,
then?
I said until, but, so basically, like, I was thinking while I was watching them play, I was like, wow, like, I really love to be in this game, like, I'd love to just be a cat, like, or, you know, some sort of, like, bit, or, you know,
I was actually in that game as a bit.
Wow.
Yeah, initially I was hired to get on Final Fantasy VII Remake as additional characters. So I did a lot of like minor roles, but my biggest minor role was Johnny's friend. So if you walk by like, you know, the bar or just somewhere in like Sector 7, you could hear a guy being like, Johnny's so cool. Man, where did Johnny go? I miss Johnny. He was just like, oh, come on, do you know about Johnny? And then the other friend would be like, Johnny? I haven't seen him. Oh man, I just miss him so much. We had about like 20 lines for this guy just talking about Johnny. Everyone else was just like, you know, random people you would pass by, or screaming people that get crushed. I remember playing the original Final Fantasy VII Remake, it's so funny saying original Final Fantasy VII Remake, but playing the original Final Fantasy VII Remake, and there was like a cutscene at the beginning of the game where you go on a train, and there's just some dude like sleeping on the train, and I was playing it, and he went, and I'm like, that's my snore! I'm right here! I took a picture of it and everything. I think that's me. It sounds like my snore. Could be someone else, but I think that's me.
So epic. Did you guys have
Right? It was a big deal to me at the time.
Yeah.
It still is to me now. But and then so tell them about your journey getting actually into the game itself.
Well, I was kidnapped to go to LA. Originally, I was living in Texas for a little bit, for like 6 months, to just try out this voice acting thing as like a trial. My mom was like, okay, if this doesn't work out, then you're coming back here to Boston and getting an actual job. So, you know,
She's right, you should listen to her.
I should have listened to her. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. No, but like I came here, and then a friend of mine, Alejandro Staub, he's actually in the game as Jules.
Oh yeah, he's the gym guy.
The gym guy, the
I
one
hate
who
that
did
guy
the
so
squat.
much. Just like I hate Alejandro. I already told him.
okay.
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
He's a great guy. I remember talking to him at the time, and he had told me about you, who I had no idea who you were. But he's like, "Have you met Suzie?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "She's great." I'm like, "Okay, cool." The only conversation we had in passing. Continue.
Oh yeah, like he was, you know, just suggesting that, you know, certain people like read for the roles that were coming out because they were looking for more people to audition. So, you know, they went out to all the agencies and to a wide net of actors, myself included. So when I got it, I was just like, oh my God, like this is her, this is the Bean, this is Yuffie. Like, I couldn't believe it.
Did you know that it was Yuffie or that it was Final Fantasy VII Remake?
I had a feeling just because I literally just finished watching my friends play Final Fantasy VII Remake, so I had a feeling something was gonna happen, if not at least like a spin-off or something like that. So, so I auditioned. I really didn't think through it very much because I was just like, I'm just gonna do what I feel like is right and go with my gut feeling. I know a lot of times, like, especially in the beginning, I would overthink and I'd be like, oh my God, okay, I gotta get this specifically right. I gotta get the read right. And
But then if you overthink it too much,
yeah,
when you listen back to it at the end, it just sounds like garbage.
Exactly.
Because it sounds like somebody who's planning to say exactly what they were
Yes.
planning to say. And that
Yes.
sounds really bad.
Yeah, so I just went with it and I sent it.
Mhm. Me, on the other hand, I overthink everything. So initially, I had heard that the auditions went out, but I had less of a clue that it was actually this game, because with her, it's an existing character. And for me, it was somebody completely brand new, so they didn't really give me any information. I'm like, this doesn't sound like anybody from the original Final Fantasy VII. So I did tons of research, and I came to the conclusion, it must be like a Wu-Tai guard or something, just some random dude going around hitting people. And I'm like, all right, cool, I'll be in the game again, I'd like to do that.
Sure.
You gotta remember, the thing with this game is that, again, like Suzie mentioned, they cast a wide net when they're searching for talent.
Yeah.
So if you remember the main cast, they're all incredible people, incredible actors with different backgrounds, you know. We have like Cody Christian
Yes.
as Cloud,
Yep.
and then like we have
Yana White as Aerith.
It's really cool. There's a lot of like on-screen and like stage performers and
Yeah.
musical performers, and it's just people far more talented
I know, like,
than we could possibly imagine.
I just feel so weird to be among like so many talented, like
Well, that's the
such
thing.
talented cast.
I've read for other characters in the game before, but you know, of course, I always read it with the mindset of, I'm not gonna get this. But if they hear it, they
some
like.
TV actor's gonna get it.
Yeah, exactly. Some
Yeah.
they'll probably get like I don't know, Tom Hardy or somebody, or someone. But you never know because the star, like the cast is so like star-studded that it's overwhelming for small-time voice actors.
Yeah.
But when we look at that, we get really intimidated. But we're just like, you know, at least we're auditioning amongst them, you know. So of course, I was like, I'm not gonna get this, but I'm gonna try. So I think we auditioned around the same time.
I think so.
And what do you think was the time that it took for you to hear back?
It took about a couple months, and in between that time, I was in quite a despair. I was just laying there.
Well, because you were in a different situation, right? You had just moved to LA.
I had just moved, so it was very, very uncertain for me, and I had no real experience in in the industry. Like I wasn't really booking because I didn't even get an agent at the time, and it was a big leap of faith, essentially, coming from a totally different background and not really knowing what to expect. So I was just thinking, oh, like that role must have gone to a TV actor or something like that. I was like, oh man, like I really wanted it, but I don't want it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you don't want to hype yourself too much. 'Cause
Exactly.
When you get disappointed after being so attached to a
Yeah.
role you audition for, you're obviously crushed. But Suzie and I actually have a very similar background when it comes to getting into voice acting. I was also somebody who just moved here on a whim, you know, and like how you said that you came here and you were just hoping to get a job.
Yes.
Yeah, I also came here initially with nothing. I had just bought my very first car, so I had like $2,000-3,000 in my pocket. And I was just like, okay, that's 1 month of rent. And then, I don't know. But I did everything in my power to survive, and luckily I was able to scrape by month to the point where I was a full-time voice actor. But that itself was such a struggle, and for you, I imagine it was even worse because your mom gave you a deadline.
Yeah.
For me, I was just like, my family doesn't know about this.
So to this day, they know.
They know about it now, but back then they were
Like
just
2
like,
years later,
they were
hey
like,
mom.
wait, you're going to California to like study, right? Or it's just summer break, right? And I'm like, yeah, just summer break. As I signed the lease to my apartment. So it was kind of like a life or death situation for both of us, which put a lot more pressure on the line. But I feel like in some ways that it like draws the energy from the universe. No, I'm kidding. Don't do that. Don't waste your life. It is not a good idea.
For me, it's not really like life or death necessarily, but you know, like.
You have supportive friends who can back you up on things.
But it's like in terms of family, that like, you know, with Asian families, it's a very big thing to be like doing the traditional thing and making sure you follow that path and you don't stray from it.
Oh yeah.
It's that huge pressure.
If you're not like a big movie star who's in movies with like big white movie stars, I don't think any Asian family wants you to be an actor.
No.
But so when you heard back from it, you were waiting for how long?
About a couple months.
Couple months?
Okay.
And then what happened when you finally heard the news?
Well, I think I was like downstairs or something, and I just checked my phone, this email, and I saw the subject line. Had a mini heart attack. I was like, oh. Visceral reaction, and was
it the like you were top choice or?
No, it was just.
It was just you booked straight away.
Yes. So I had saw the email in my
Wow, I'm
hands.
so happy for you. It must have been such a relief.
It wasn't, because it wasn't even that at first, because I think initially they were like asking me if I was comfortable to even come in before they gave me the official.
With the new, world.
Yeah,
dystopia
because it
that
was
we live
still
in,
recorded in the
They
pandemic.
always ask people if they're willing to come in
Yeah.
for a job now. Because
Yeah.
you can say no and just do it from home.
Yeah.
But with like big projects with a lot of money on the line, they
Oh,
would like
yeah.
to get everybody together.
Yeah, especially because it's the Neumann mic, like they
It's
want
like,
everyone.
those microphones cost more than my life. those are so
sensitive. You
And they
can
are so
use some
sensitive.
ink. Like it's squishy
I've
sound.
never been more embarrassed than recording for Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Me
because
too.
every time I'm just there and my throat makes a noise when I read a line, I'm like, I just have to be like, so, are we good to move on? And then,
Listen,
like,
at
your
least
stomach just
they
gurgle? I'm like,
didn't
no.
stop you every time your nose squeaked. You
Your
know,
nose
like when you have like a nasal knock or something.
No, they did that to me because I have a deviated septum, so they could hear me breathing. So they could hear me go like, between takes when it's all quiet and they're editing, they could just hear.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, see? Now you're giving the same dirty looks these folks are sensitive too.
No, it was different because every time we got like a really good take, like really good acting, like Kirk was like, oh yeah, that's the one, Suzie. And then Justin, the engineer, he'd be like, no, it's got
It's
like
not
a
the
sleep.
one, Suzie.
What?
It's not the take. You had a fart in it.
Yeah, you had a nose fart, so like you gotta take that out. And every time.
Your heartbeat was beating too irregularly. We have to take that take out.
Well, it was the thing. That was the thing. It was like my heart was beating so fast because I was like, it's just you gonna take it.
You think they heard
So
your
my nose
nervous
not-
noises? You just. But so you got the email, and you
Okay,
were.
yeah. I was, I didn't believe it was real. I went upstairs, I just paced back and forth, literally, and I looked at it again, and then I literally just slowly sank down to the ground on my knees and started crying.
Did the people you were with knew that, like your roommates?
Well,
Or did you keep it?
I kept it secret, but like they saw me
Soldier.
crying. They're like, did somebody die? Like, are you okay? Because I was on the ground. I was on the
And it was
floor.
like crying, laughing. So it's like, did
I
she
wasn't
kill
laughing,
somebody?
I just cried. I was like, so it was very emotional.
That's a cute story. I like that.
It was very emotional.
My story was not so cute. So when I auditioned for the role, initially the character was designed to be more of like a big brother, happy-go-lucky, pretty boy type, and some references that I thought were similar to what they were describing was like, say like Flynn Rider, you know, from Tangled, or like Fire Emblem Pretty Boys. They're like, hey, what's up? How you doing?
Can you imagine someone was like,
That's how my first audition was. It was like, hey, you know, Fee, how you doing? And I was like, I don't feel like this is right for this character that they asked, and I kind of want to hit the mark that they're looking for. So I was just like, what's up, boss? What are you gonna do now? Shall we head, let's go meet Cloud? But it was
that's not.
awful. It was absolutely awful. So I sent it in, and I'm like, maybe I should have included a second take. And like a month or so passed, and I heard from a friend of mine, he contacted me, he's like, so are you doing the callbacks for Sonon? I'm like, what? And callbacks, for those who don't know, is like a second stage of auditioning. Like, if you make it past the first stage, they're like, okay, we like these, say, 5 to 10 people, and we're gonna ask for a second read from them to make a final decision. So he was like, did you hear the callbacks for Sonon? I'm like, what though? Oh, okay. He's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm like, I didn't expect to get it anyways, it's fine. But I'm like, good luck, I believe in you, and I would like to see you win. But then, like, 2 weeks later, an email showed up in my inbox, and it was Sonon. It was an audition for Sonon again. So this is like the 3rd time that he's gone out. And I'm just like, I guess they haven't found their guy. And this time, the description, everything was still the same. There was no change to anything. I think they were just casting another net. So I was like, I'm just gonna go with my gut this time. Like, this guy seems like a very kind of like uptight and serious guy. So I just went with something that was just like, hey, how you doing? And then I said that, and I'm like, you know, usually when you nitpick it or like at something, it's just like, it sounds too boring.
Yeah.
It's not good enough.
Yeah.
But you just gotta think about how true it is to the character and what the character actually is. Because not everybody is a polished speaker. Not everybody's gonna have perfect diction. Not everybody's gonna have like a perfect way of saying sentences or words. And not everybody's gonna have high energy or be animated. So you just have to think about the character. Like, what do I think this guy would do? Probably nothing. So I feel like this guy, if he had like, say if he was looking after a child, he would probably just stand there and watch him like go into the microwave or something. But I just went with my gut. I sent it in, and then I got an email that said, hey, you are in the top selection. And I was like, come on! Why can't you just book me right now? I'm so stressed out. But it was like, okay, so you're in the top selection. We're just telling you this, so you know. And I'm like, well, don't tell me, because now I'm going to be nervous. But they do that a lot. They let you know if you are being considered, just so you can like free up your schedule and not have any conflicts and stuff like that. So I was waiting for, I don't know, God, it felt like 2 months. And it probably was 2 months, but they were like, we're going to record on this day. So if you don't hear from us on this day, probably means that you didn't get it. 2 months, 2 draining months went by, and every day I was thinking about it. I'm like, I'm so close. Dear Lord, I became a Christian. Dear Lord, if you I will never beg for somebody else again, please. Universe. But yeah, so the recording day finally came. And usually you don't hear back within like 2 days before the recording day.
Oh, yeah.
You're done. But the recording day came, and it's been long enough that I just kind of like came to terms with it. Because sometimes you have to do that. You have to let go eventually, or you can be hurt for a long time. And I knew all about that year. But so it came, the day came, and I was just like, well, I gave it a good shot. I got pretty close. I'm just gonna send my agent an email to ask them, like send an email to the company and be like, hey, so he didn't get it? Can we remove, everything from his schedule then, and clear up his schedule? Because, it was just like a courtesy. I knew I didn't get it, but I was like, just check with them, just in case, just in case they change their mind at the last minute. And so I was like, all right, well, it's out of my hands now. And they're like, okay, we're gonna check. And then like 3 hours later, I get an email and it's like, are you okay to come in tomorrow? And I'm like, I changed their minds at the last second. They had moved the recording date, so it was gonna record later on, and they were finally making the decision on that day. And I was just like, oh, it worked. Christianity time. But it was so last minute.
Yeah.
And I think that was probably one of the most stressed out times I've ever been as an actor, was just waiting for that email. And oh my God, imagine what would have happened if I didn't get that email. Just fade. Just disappear right
I'd
now.
already come to terms.
Right. But from my story, it was much more harsh than yours. Yours sounded like attitude. Okay, when I found out.
The way that I approach it is that like I just let go. I just let go. Like
She's technically in her very early years of voice acting, but she already has the mindset of such a wise voice actor. But yeah, when I found out, I think it was more of like a relief than it was happiness. Because you can only process one big emotion at a time, at least for me. So the whole day I just spent like decompressing, just being like, and I had to make sure I wasn't dreaming, because sometimes you dream about that kind of stuff and you wake up under disappointment. But it was definitely probably the best news I had gotten that year.
Oh, yeah.
And was so excited to, one, get into the recording process, and two, find out what was going on with this game, because nobody knew what was happening and what it was for. And find out who the character is. Who is this guy?
Yeah.
And so what was your experience like when you finally got to go into the booth and, finally dive into the character itself?
Well, I mean, obviously I was nervous because it was the first time I had ever gone in.
Oh yeah, that was your first audition and booking in LA
booking
too,
in
right?
LA, yeah.
How impressive is that? How impressive is that? My first thing here was like an anime movie that was like, had controversy in it.
Oh no!
And then you get like the coolest character in one of the biggest video games of all time.
It's timing, man.
It's
like,
timing.
Honestly, it's timing. It's timing.
I've always said that Suzie reminds me of myself, except 3 times faster. She's like a speedrun version of me. To play my life again, but go even faster. It's very, very impressive. But tell us about your personalized bathroom that you got at the studio.
Oh yeah, we had our own name tags like stuck on the bathroom, so only one person at a time.
It was actually not a personalized bathroom.
Oh, it
It was a
wasn't.
thing. They switched the name tags
The
out,
names,
so everybody's
right.
using the same bathroom, but they just switched the names to make us feel special.
Yeah, I remember seeing your name on the bathroom. I was like, that must mean he's in it. Like,
But did you know who I was? Because I had never
I
mentioned
had
you.
heard of you. Like,
No,
you're on Twitter making
and then-
memes and stuff. Weird guy.
She doesn't get my humor. We went to the Washington Monument yesterday, and I kept taking pictures of her with like the fisheye lens, like really close up to her face, and she's like, "Stop! I'm going to kill you."
She sent it to me. I was like, I hate you very much.
But so.
Yeah.
When you started recording, was it hard at all to live up, like, did you have to live up to the expectations of prior interpretations of Yuffie in your mind, or did you kind of just go into it with a new mindset?
Well, I definitely went in with a new mindset, because like I knew the remake series already had like a brand new cast and a whole fresh new outlook to how they were going to approach the game, and that includes the performances. So I really didn't have that preconception in my mind. Like I remember the voices, but it's like I had the basics. Like she's spunky, she's energetic, she loves materia. That's about it. Like
or as Kirk, our director, would describe it, she's the most anime character in the game.
She is, isn't she?
The most animated anime character in the game.
Yeah. I think that was the challenge though, because
which is like when I look at you and when I talk to you and when it just doesn't feel like you. You know? To me, Suzie is a very composed person.
I think I saw a tweet saying that I was more like Sonon and Aleks was more like Yuffie. Which is, I think
it's kind of true.
It's kind of true.
She's so composed and civil.
Just chaotic.
I'm just doing my thing, man.
Yeah. But no, you're right. Like Kurt said, our director, she's very animated and the most anime of all the characters in the cast.
Now the thing about Final Fantasy VII Remake acting is that it borders a strange line between a very cinematic approach, because they have all these on-screen actors, all these movie actors, and it's a game that is very strictly like Japanese RPG style. So what I found when I played the first game was that there were a lot of moments that were outstanding when it came to like the groundedness and the realness of the performance. But when the characters got goofy, it was kind of like, okay. Does anybody remember the scene when like there were several scenes when something dramatic would happen and they would fade to black, but the characters' voices wouldn't. So it'd just be like, oh, so the fucking building just blew up, and then someone would be like, no! And the screen's already black, but they're still going, oh! No, not you!
No, I honestly didn't feel like it was like that dramatic at all. How I saw the performances in the original remake was that it was very grounded, very realistic for a JRPG.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, for sure. The most that I've seen. So like I really gotta give kudos and props to the main cast.
And they're so nice.
They're so amazing.
Nice.
They're so cool.